call to order the Danville Board of Education regular meeting for December 11th, 2017. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you all here with us. We will start out with approving the meeting agenda.
I make a motion that we approve of the meeting agenda as presented.
Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. And then at this time, moving on to presentations. Are there any board member comments at this time?
Well, there is so much to say, so I'm going to let Keith talk about most of it. But honestly, it's really been fantastic the last several months. What's been going on with the Danville schools, academically, athletically, musically, forensically, robotically. Unbelievable things going on, and it's nothing but a positive that's happening with the Danville schools. So to all that were involved and have been involved and have stood up to be in sports or to be in any club or organization, I have to personally thank all of you all, because it does make a difference.
All right, so Steve just summed it up. I don't know, anything else? All right, this time, Keith.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. And we've got, appreciate a little holiday cheer that if hunger's taken over, please come up and help yourself. And the award winners, when we do the recognitions, we'll give you some snacks too. Usually you just get a certificate, so tonight's your lucky night. Yes, we've been on quite a run, from football championships to coaches of the year in football and girls soccer, and then forensics coach of the year for the state of Kentucky, all things that I think are about to be recognized, so I don't want to steal too much thunder from our sponsors as well. So let me talk about a little bit of other aspect. If you've had a chance to see in the paper, we've had a lot of great things going on, even being part of the Safe Communities effort, 4-county collaboration here most recently. There was also a piece that I think ran today, although sometimes I get confused between the online and print version, and that's our Family Resource and Youth Service Centers. This is a time of year that oftentimes is one of great joy and excitement. Both, it's always one of generally good spirits. It can also be the most stressful time of the year if you rely on your school or you rely on your community to make sure that your day-to-day existence provides you the basic necessities and the appropriate routines. Our Family Resource and Youth Service Centers have been spending a great deal of their time paying attention to those families that this time of year is sometimes the most difficult. And they've done great work with contributions from the community, contributions from parents, and contributions from staff to take care of those kids, to take care of those families, to make sure that the weeks ahead can be as stable from a food standpoint, stable and supportive from a holiday standpoint, and from a needs standpoint. And while we have the opportunity this evening to do a lot of great celebration, it's that kind of work that truly makes the Danville schools special in so many different ways. So we appreciate greatly their work, and knowing that that is an effort that's not just at the holiday season, but that's done throughout the year. I can't make comments like that without addressing Patty Taylor, who's in front of me from the cafeteria manager, who's just now freaked out that I called her by name. But when you think about the number of kids that we serve, and making sure that they are warm and fed on a daily basis, breakfast and lunch, that the efforts that are made from the summers and the breaks as well, it's that kind of work that again represents the commitment of the Danville schools 365 days a year. We appreciate the efforts of every one of the Danville schools that make that possible for all of our families.
Thank you, Dr. Luck. And this time we will have our student recognition, so I'm not sure who is Miss Satterley.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening. I have several students to recognize. I don't think a whole slew of them are here, but I'm going to go ahead and read all their names just because I feel like the number is a huge number to be recognized even if they're not here. The first students that I will be recognizing are all students who in the 16-17 school year scored straight distinguished on all sections of the K-Prep assessment. So this would have been last year's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So you'll see some freshmen up here too, but they technically took the assessment at Bate last year. So they were my kiddos last year. So in 6th grade, currently in 7th grade, and they take reading, math, and language mechanics, Denise Brown. Didn't see Denise. Mackenzie Gattaca, Lucy Kate Gibson, Christopher Greer, he has a basketball game, so I know he's not here. Hank Helmers. You have to take a picture. Sam Matherly, which he has a basketball game too, so. But his mother will, I'm sure, kind of accept it. So you can be in the picture on behalf of him.
I just wanted to say.
Come on, Miss Matherly. Holden McKnight. No Holden. Ramona Pierce. I saw Ramona. Macy Grace Terrell, she just walked in, I know I saw her. Oh, and that's all of my last year's 6th graders. Do we want to do one big picture or separate grade
No,
level?
we'll do separate.
Okay.
That's right. Susan, you'll be on phone.
Oh, Saturday? I'm sorry. All right, 1,
Congratulations, guys. Don't forget your cookies when you come up. And last year's 7th graders took reading and math. Abigail Anderson. Congratulations. Brady Bischoff. Hello, Brady. Naomi Israel. Y'all saw her. Congratulations. David Lamb. Hello, David. Emma Nesmith. Ash Oaks. Eric Phillips. I thought Eric. Congratulations. Jack Simpson. Hello, Jack. Are they out there in the hallway, guys? Help me out here. Trinity Welch. Okay, that's all nothing. Well, okay.
1, 2, 3.
Cookie? Your cookie. It's your cookie.
It's a good idea. Last year's 8th graders took, let's see, reading, math, social studies, and on-demand writing. So, and if you think 3 sections of each of those assessments, so it's a long week for 8th graders. It's a long week for everybody, but especially for 8th graders. So these are current 9th graders at Danville High School. Faith Breitenbach. Let me see Faith. Sophie Farmer. Nope. Hope Helmers. You might be the only one. Congratulations. Christian Howe. No. Keely McKnight. Ashley Rankin. Ethan Scott. And Madison Terrell. And mom and sister just left, so I'm assuming there's probably a girls' basketball game too. Okay? It's just you, Hope. That's awesome. And then I had one more student to recognize, and I haven't seen her this evening, but Miss Sophie Sanders submitted some beautiful artwork to an art contest called the Second Annual Children's Environmental Health Summit Poster Contest. It's a mouthful. But she, in the whole state of Kentucky, got second place in that art contest. She's not here, I haven't seen her, but we're pretty proud of her. Her artwork is pretty phenomenal, so if you see her, tell her congratulations. Thank you.
We are lucky tonight to have Ms. Dewey stepping in for Ms. Ralston. Ms. Ralston is currently at City Hall accepting a proclamation with Coach Clevenger for our 2A state football championship. So while she's at City Hall, Ms. Dewey's going to handle the recognitions for the high school.
Just have to check my paperwork here. Yes, I'm honored to be here today to present these student celebrations. And as Dr. Look said, Ms. Ralston, I wouldn't be able to stand in for her if the high school wasn't getting a proclamation from the city. So I guess I'm fortunate. I'm here at a good time, although Ms. Ralston actually every time there's a high school recognition asks me, what celebrations do we have in the arts? This time we have some big celebrations in the arts. So first off, I would like to celebrate our Admiral's Marching Band by celebrating our senior members, who are not our only members of the band, but it's the members that we're celebrating this time. And this band came in 4th in the state in our class, and that's just a huge accomplishment. And part of the special celebration here is that these same students did this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was your freshman year? Was it your freshman year? 8th grade year. So some of them were in band. 7th grade year. 7th grade year. So they have a medal from then and a medal from now, and we are extremely proud of all of them, and I see many of them here tonight. So I'm going to call them up along with their director, and we're going to recognize them today for their accomplishments. Delaney Salee. This is what happens to me every year at the high school awards. Corbin Denson. Is Corbin with us tonight? No. Dakota Rowland, who I see back there. Cameron Villanueva. Hannah Felty. Morgan France, who I don't believe is with us tonight. Chase Goldie. Brandon Gray. Tristan Redmond. And this next senior that I'm going to call gets an extra recognition. We just learned about it, so there's no certificate for it, but we would recognize Jacob Towns not only for being a senior member of the Admiral Band this year, but also for being selected to the 2018 KMEA All-State Orchestra. So congratulations. I believe he's one of just a few trumpet players in the state. And of course, we wouldn't be anywhere without our director, Mr. Jeff Towns.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Could you guys look over this?
Sure, Mr. Goldie.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
are very proud of the Danville Admirals Marching Band, but that's not all that we're recognizing today. And while I may have missed her, I don't see her, we have another Arts Award winner, and that is Peyton Pendleton, who designed an award-winning bookmark for the Library Bookmark Contest. So I think we'll give her a quick round of applause. Thank you. And we also have an Educator Award to give, and it's certainly my pleasure to give this to someone that I've actually been working with pretty closely for the past 18 years. So we would like to recognize Steve Meadows for the National Speak and Debate Association State Educator of the Year from Kentucky.
There you go. Congrats, Dave. Good to see you. Good job.
And those are our award winners for this month. Stay tuned for next time. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. All right, thank you, Ms. Dewey. I think everybody's pretty much left, but don't feel like you have to stay either. We'd love for you to, but. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is our child count data report.
Before we get into the numbers, I just want to continue with our celebration of all the wonderful things going on by letting you know that for the last 3 years we've been part of the peer support network with UK. And we've worked very closely with Patty Logston and Luann Land of UK. And Senator Carroll caught wind of all the wonderful things that the project has been supporting. And in following that, Bate was highlighted as a model site. So he watched the videos, asked some questions, and then today, Katie Newton and I had the opportunity to go to Frankfurt and speak in front of the Educational Committee about all the wonderful things that are going on here in Danville. It was super exciting. It feels great. So we got to share about all the wonderful things going on here, and we actually had a group of students at Bate that we got to Skype with. So they got to answer some questions and see some of the representatives, so that was very exciting. And they are pushing for some additional support for this type of program to be in almost all schools. They said they didn't want to make it law because they were afraid if they pushed it then the quality would suffer, but this is something that they definitely see the value in and are supporting. So we were super excited to be recognized and be a part of that. Okay, in front of you, you have a copy of our current child count breakdown. And we are up numbers again this year. Our total was 377 over last year's 352, so we were up 25, which is quite a bit for a district our size. But in looking at the trends and the data, we had 22 students to move in that were identified. We've had several students that we've released from services. Our numbers at preschool level are up. Our numbers at Sunrise campus was up. We keep the same number of students there, but not every student that comes in has an IEP. So it's just who's here on December 1 as to how many we have. So, and if you see school-wise, Jenny Rogers was up by 13, and we actually added 0.5 and then 0.8 and then a full teacher. So in response to the increase in students that we've had, we added a 0.5 teacher at Tolliver to give them a third. They have a full-time. Jenny Rogers, we added an IA and a half-time teacher, 3/10 at Hogsett, 7/10 at Bay, and a teacher at Danville High School. Not only to meet the number, but the intensity of needs of the students that we are getting. They're coming to us with greater needs, which means more services and a higher demand on the teachers to meet those needs. So,
Have we changed the identification at all?
No.
Or it's just
no changes in identification. We've just had several to move in already identified. and when they move in, we serve. In looking at our evaluations, it's not that we've all of a sudden identified more students, because from last child count to the end of the year, we only identified 5 students. We tested 5 more who didn't qualify. So it's not that the identification process has changed, it's just we're getting students in who are meeting that eligibility criteria as they come in. Speech numbers were up, developmental delay numbers were up, and that's usually our preschool, kindergarten level. Any other questions on that?
You've been a bit busy.
Just a little.
Yeah. And you can't anticipate, that's the,
It's, and again, this is who's here on December 1. Those numbers are actually different today.
wow.
It
Very
doesn't fluctuate
challenging.
a whole lot, but yeah. We knew the numbers were going to be up just because you all know that we've come to you multiple times asking for more, and this is why. We're just getting, it's, I think the word's gotten out about what a wonderful job
Go ahead, there's
our
no doubt.
departments are doing, and when people new to the area, so we've gotten a lot in.
Well, it says a lot about you too. You're the leader, so.
They're on the ground doing the work.
Thank you. All right, and then next on the agenda is the nutrition report card. Stay.
Good evening. Let's see what I can celebrate. I can celebrate a very hot summer in this cold day today, but it was a very hot, very productive summer with my little pet, the summer feeding program. We actually, I think, showed an increase again this year of 8% more. And the year before that, it was even more than that. And the summer coming up, it'll be even more. We just found out that there is a grant coming that's, I think it's supposed to be signed into, it may have been signed this Friday or next Friday. It's a program for fruits and vegetables. We're going to get reimbursed. If you buy locally, you would get up to 33% of your money back in the form of money coming back to support the area farmers and also to help increase and get better food for the kids. So we plan on taking full advantage of that this summer. That's, right now it's only for the summer months that we're going to get that additional money. But if it's successful, then they'll look at doing it throughout the year. Also, y'all have the report card that I sent to you. The physical activity assessment was provided by what the representatives at each school sent to us and put on their report card that they filled out, their sections that they filled out. I feel like we must be doing something right, being as we're in Titletown and we have all these physical athletic accomplishments, so we must be doing something right in that area. We received from federal reimbursement, all these figures are for 2016, 2017, $1,059,315.47 in federal money that came right back to our school lunch programs. We continue to, we're of course full CEP, nobody pays, and we did see a small increase in our breakfast that year, and we stayed about the same for lunches. So, I mean, when you're at over 90-some%, there's not, for lunch, there's not a lot of room to go up. And this year, we're really seeing a big increase at the high school in the numbers of breakfasts that are being consumed. So I expect that number, when I come back to you all next year, to be significantly increased for the breakfast program. And that's all I have.
What do you attribute the increase in breakfast at the high school? Is it just
I think it's because a lot of students, we have big participation in the last several years in elementary school. I just think as they've gotten older,
they've gotten used to
coming in and doing it, and it just, you know, it's just kind of
keep that going.
keeping it going, right. I mean, I have been here a lot during breakfast, and sometimes I think they're eating in their sleep because they come in really draggy. but they, you know, it does, I guess, and we do sell coffee, and I don't know how much of that, I don't think they buy that much of that. Like I said, they're kind of like in a zombie at 7:30, quarter to 8, but they're eating.
I mean, I'm thankful that we're able to, because I mean, like you said, I mean, it just gives them a chance to have that they may not have at home, so.
Right,
it's
right.
huge, So,
So
yeah.
anything we can do to
Yes.
decrease their anxiety level and
Yes,
all that, that's what we're here for.
fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good job, Danny. Good cookie.
I already had mine, you know that.
Okay. And then the next item is the personnel notifications. This is just for. If you only have any questions or.
Just see if there are
Okay.
any questions.
Very good, no questions? Okay. All right, and then moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes of the November the 13th meeting and November the 20th meeting as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, moving on down to our reports, the first being the staffing report.
I'll apologize, I just lost connection, so give me just a second. I'll look through so much of our, I believe this is our, the aid at the high school?
Yes, and then.
And the bus fund.
and
The bus fund. So you've all seen it, any
Yes.
questions? Because it's, you know,
No.
I make a motion for the approval of the staffing report as submitted.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And treasurer's report.
Before we get started, I'm gonna pass the handout to you. So now you know what property tax collections are.
Thank you.
All right, since we didn't have a chance to do the finance report at the work session last week, we'll start with that. For the month of November, you can look at the information from the trial balance at the beginning. We started with cash balance of $5,586,000 and some change. Took in receipts for the month of just over $6 million, and disbursements for the month, including payroll and our payables, were $1,953,000 change, leaving us with a balance at the end of November of $9,678,848.94. At the middle of the page, you can see how those how that cash balance is broken down into the various funds maintained by the district. Our general fund being the largest of $8,136,000 and some change, and so on down the line. Our capital outlay, building fund, construction, food service, etc., totaling the same as the cash balance above. And then down below, the bank account balance minus our outstanding checks at the end of the month give us the same balance. And the next page is a summary of the receipts for the district during the month of November. You can look down through there and see the majority of those receipts were property tax collections, totaling $4,835,771.77 for the month. That include most of it's 2017, but there were a few prior year collections also included in that amount. You can see our SEEK money, various other receipts down through the list. If you've got any questions on what some of those mean, you can ask. Feel free to ask about it. Next is the expenditures, how they were reported by the various claims and the payrolls that we had. Total payables for November totaled $629,796.98, and we'll go through those briefly here in a minute. The November payroll was $1,323,919.99, for a total, as we said on the beginning, on the first page, of $1,953,716.97. And then down below that are the reiteration of the various reconciliations, getting us to the balance at the end of the month. Any questions on the treasurer's report before we move to the finance report that we usually do? And just so you know, that balance at the end of the month represents a $4,092,000 increase over the prior month.
Any questions? Okay.
So do we need?
No, it's not on there. Do we need to make a motion to,
It's normally a work session.
it is, okay, all right. Stop me just a little. Okay, so we can move on.
Okay, for the financial report for November, you can see on the front page, like we started before, the beginning balance and then our receipts added in, minus our claims and our payroll, left us with the $9.6 million balance. And you can see how that compares. That's in the first column for the November of 17. You can see how that compares to November of 2016. Actually, if you go down to the middle of the page where it's broken down by fund, you'll see that the general fund cash balance is up from a year ago, approximately $730,000. If you take into account the extra money that we've thrown into the assigned funds, we're actually up $982,000 over last year, so in good shape there. And actually, like I said, the balance would have increased by about $535,000 over the prior year. Down at the bottom of the page is our continuing breakdown of our Tolliver construction CD. During the month of November, we paid out $300,904.47. Actually, we've already got December's added on there also. It was $211,000 and some change. So as of standing right now, we've paid out $12,334,416, and we still have a current certificate balance of just over $1.9 million for the remainder of the project. The interest that we've earned to date, including November, is $107,857.25. If you look on the second page, that's our summary of the general fund receipts for the month, and then also the year-to-date and budget comparison, and the last column over there was last year-to-date, so you can kind of compare and see where we are this year as opposed to the same time last year. You can see our general fund property taxes, all the other type of taxes that we collected, our SEEK money, all totaling $4.911 million in the general fund. Then the year-to-date numbers, as I said, and how they compare with what our budget numbers are, and then you can see where we were last year, and then whether we're over or behind what we had received at this time last year. Everything's going pretty smoothly so far. We're going to talk about the property taxes here in just a minute, but collections are good, so everything's going as anticipated. The next page is a summary of the general fund expenditures for the month, broken down by function. You can see those by month, by date, or by year to date, and then last year, and then there's a comparison to the budget as well. For the month, it was $1.264 million. Actually, for the year to date right now, we're at 5.3, which is up from last year by about $296,000. Didn't say it, but on the revenues from last year, we're up approximately $1 million right now. And then finally, a breakdown on that last page of the, like we talked about, the cash balance, and then minus the sick leave that we have assigned, and then the maintenance of $1 million, cash balance of $6.936 million. Now, I just wanted to touch base with you on the handout that I gave you regarding this is kind of a summary that I'm keeping as far as our property tax collections. It's broken down by what we've received in October, what we received in November. Year to date, right now, we've taken in a total, through November 30th, a total of 4,175 tax bills at a face value of $6.455 million. People have taken advantage of the discounts of $128,000, and so with a few little adjustments in there, we've actually collected $6.327 million. You will see on that second page, that's kind of a breakdown there of some things that sometimes we have people pay their tax bill, and then their mortgage company also pays their tax bill, and so we have to turn around and refund a few back to the taxpayer. And then also, some of them may pay more than they're supposed to. They pay the face amount rather than taking advantage of the discount, and so if that's the case, if they meet the criteria for getting the discount, we'll turn around and refund that money back to them. So that's what those items are that you're showing, the negatives there that balance everything.
Are people taking advantage of the credit card, or is anybody doing that?
We have had a few. As a matter of fact, the first day that we had it up and running, we had a few glitches because the card reader they sent us wouldn't work, but we were still able, if they brought their credit card in, we could enter it by hand. And so right after that happened, we took in approximately a little over $5,000 in taxes on the credit card. They've since sent us a new swiper which works. I don't think we've had any since then, but there's always a possibility anybody wants to take advantage of it, they can now. It's working fully functional.
Yeah, that'll grow once people know, and it's at no cost to the district.
Yeah, and we'll be in position next year that we can offer that from the start, and won't have to go through the growing pains of trying to get it up and working. So yeah, I think it'll be a benefit for people in the long run. Yeah. And I'm also I think we can eventually use it for other things besides property taxes also. If people want to come in and pay something, they can take a credit card and move it to wherever we need to.
That'll be good. Well, I got to compliment you on your organization and getting these property taxes paid. I know you're standing there with a gun and having them pay them, but we're a pretty lucky district, you guys. We've got districts right now that we don't even know if they're going to be open next year. And I'm serious. So we have districts, Pike County, different ones, that are no longer getting coal money. And so since the coal jobs are not there, they're also not getting their property taxes because people are just leaving their houses because they can't pay for them. So then they sit in foreclosure. Some do, some don't, and they're just not getting, when we get a 98, 99% property collection rate, and theirs is below 50, people are in trouble. So we are very lucky to be where we are. And I don't know what the state's going to do if we have 4 or 5 of these districts owned. It's pretty serious.
And just to let you know, as far as talking about the property taxes, as of today, we still have unpaid approximately 995 bills at a face value of $719,000. So collection is going really well.
Yeah, it's really good. Thank you.
I make a motion for the approval of the financial report as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. And we'll move on to the payment of invoices.
Okay, you should have with your treasurer's report, the last page is a summary of expenditures. What I've done is taken the invoices, the list that you have been given, and try to, as we've done last month, sort those out and give you a little heads up on what they consist of. The total accounts payable claims for the month, as we said earlier, was $629,796.98. Of that amount, almost $301,000 was for the Edna L. Tolliver construction and renovation project. We did have a payout on the high school and middle school roofing project of $1,570. And then we also had one debt service payment due during the month of $4,529.83. That left us with $322,792.76 for routine monthly expenditures, instructional supplies, repairs and maintenance, utilities, food service, diesel fuel, other things that are necessary to operate the school district. Down below, we noted some expenditures that occurred this month. We paid out $25,600 to the University of Kentucky Training Services for the contract that we had with them. Our district financial audit of $15,000. We purchased second floor furniture for the Tolliver project totaling almost $36,000. And then a couple other things, the school e-meeting subscription that we did for each of the individual schools, $2,500. And then our services for our tax bill printing and mailing, that type of stuff for $8,604. And then we also had an HVAC observation test for Tolliver of $6,625 coming out of that $322,793.
Any questions for Paul?
I make a motion for the approval of the payment of invoices totaling $629,796.98 as presented.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. All right, so moving on to the facilities spending plan.
Okay, this is the financial expense funding source for the various projects that we've identified in the district that we talked about at the working session. Just to highlight briefly some of the things that we're looking to accomplish right now in fiscal year 18. The columns and facade project for Tolliver, the change order and everything has been approved by KDE on that, so we'll transfer the $400,000 necessary to accomplish that extra part of the project into the construction project. Right now, the bleacher project, it has been approved by KDE and it is currently, the stuff has been delivered and they're working on getting the upper bleachers set up, so that's another one that we've got going right now. We continue to work on the Admiral Stadium, look at it, see what we can do, what we can afford, and revise that project. So you can see those things that are coming out of the assigned funds that we had set aside, that $1 million, and things that we're working on right now. Also coming up this year that we'll be completing will be the or restarting will be the Hogsett renovation project, and also the John W. Bate Middle School HVAC project that we're looking at possibly bonding those items as we talked about. And then there's some other things that we can do out of the construction contingency money that we have remaining with some other leftover money and some other projects that we need to close out. And then also the phase 2 of the Danville High School roof replacement out of our restricted funds, which would be our leftover capital outlay and building fund monies after our debt service obligations are met. And then,
So essentially your acceptance of this report, because we've discussed it once, is essentially an endorsement of the priorities that are listed there and the intended accounts from which to draw the funds for doing so.
But like things like the athletic stadium, will we see plans for that?
Sure.
Okay.
This
It's
is just the idea
just
that
kind of where, what goes where.
anytime you spend money on one thing, you're choosing not to spend it someplace else. So this is making sure that as a board, we've agreed that these are key areas that need to be addressed relatively in the next couple of years. And there's lots of different ways to pay for these sorts of things. So you're essentially also endorsing a strategy that says this ought to be bonded, this ought to be out of assigned funds, this ought to be out of general account. So just try to lay out for you the budgetary plan.
anything like that that we do, we'll bring you. I'll let you know before we proceed with it.
And I know we talked about the softball field, and it's under, 2019. So is that
Right now, that's up in the air.
because of the
Kind of pending,
appraisal?
right, the property that we have offered, or if we need to go into another direction, that's why it's listed down there a little bit down the road. So, I mean, there's a possibility that that could be moved up a little bit if things fall into place. We'll just have to see.
The amount on the HVAC replacement, I thought we were well under that. So you have $3 million down?
We started out at approximately 2.5 to 3.5 million, but now we're down to 750,000 because Christie found some new units that would be able to use. I think it's 8 of them total with controls and with everything that we need. We've got right now about 750.
But it's still listed under projected cost at $3 million.
No.
Shouldn't be on the one that I
What am I
sent
looking
you.
at?
Are you on an old one?
I'm on an old one, sorry. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Good, I'm glad it's different. Good.
That's a big difference.
I was getting worried here.
Anytime we save money, we will.
Good job.
All right, any other questions on?
I'll make a motion that we approve the acceptance of the facility spending plan as submitted.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Paul. All right, and now we will move on to the 2018-19 school calendar.
Give you a copy of this year's calendar for a reference, so you can have it next to your other copy of it. So as we've talked about, this is the first year that we've been mandated to have a calendar committee, all districts throughout the state. So it's been kind of tough to get answers to questions because it's the first go-around with this mandated committee. Most districts, I think, have navigated it pretty well. Our committee met twice. And you know, it was a makeup of classified, certified principal, community members, central office, and parents. So it was a good broad section of stakeholders. We met twice. A theme emerged early that I think Mr. Becker said this was the first year he hadn't had any negative comments about the 17-18 calendar, which he thought was a victory in and of itself, because he usually does. So that theme emerged that there was happiness with this year's calendar. And so a couple of questions came out of that first committee meeting. One was, how are the PD days used in terms of our teachers getting the majority of their PD done before the PD days in the calendar, or are they using days that we actually have scheduled? For example, if you're an AP teacher and you go to an AP conference, that could be all your 24 hours, or a large majority. So those questions were asked. The question was asked about August 26th. The new calendar law says if you start after the closest Monday to the 26th of August, then the number of instructional days, which is required at 170 minimum, is waived. And then you only have to have 1,062 hours. And so with our instructional day of 6.5 hours, that would require a 164-day minimum to get the 1,062 hours. And that is an effort to try to push the school start back so tourism and commerce can flourish in the hot months or hot weeks of August, I guess. So that was asked. And then another thing was how many shortened weeks there are, how many 4-day and 3-day weeks. So, and then also we suggested that all of our different stakeholders go back and meet with constituencies and ask what they thought about the calendar. So we came back, based on that, I put together 3 calendars based on the feedback. One was identical to this year's calendar. I mean, just flip the dates, 1 day short, you know, it's a day earlier, and it was exactly like the calendar this year. Then one was tweaked a little bit based on the things we talked about in the meeting, and that is the one you're presented with tonight as the recommended calendar by the committee, which was unanimous. And then I put together an August 26th version with the same fall break, same spring break, and I had to take 1 PD day and front load it to get the 164 days, so we could meet the hour requirement. And again, the one you're looking at now, we called option 2, was unanimously voted on to recommend to the board, and the other two were not voted on to present to you all. If you, and we always use our friends out the road, on the calendar that's before you, we have the exact same start date and end date as Boyle. Now, this is what they proposed. Okay, so I spoke with them last week. So what their calendar committee brought to their board, and I would imagine they've just had this is the first night we can discuss it, then y'all are required to have one more meeting about it. So what they proposed was the same exact start date and end date as ours. Fall break, spring break match up with theirs. And the only difference is they're going through the 21st of December. And then they don't go back to school until actually the 8th. They have a planning day on the 7th. So that's 3 full weekends and then the Monday after, I think. And that's what they told me they were presenting to their board. So we actually, the tweaks from this year, we added the planning day on the 14th. That day is usually open on August 14th. And a lot of our teachers are actually here anyway. And so we're getting a lot of work out of those folks on a day that they don't have, that they are not, it's not in their contract. If you look at this year on the 15th, that August 15th, Tuesday, there's no school there. And most teachers are at school at least some of that time getting ready. So we added a planning day there that we took from one of the planning days in the first week of the calendar, August 8th, or August 9th this year. And we added a PD day there instead of a planning. That PD day on the 7th and 8th, that extra PD day was taken from March 21st and 22nd. There was concern on the committee that 3-day week, and then we had a 5-day week and then spring break. So there was a 3-day week and then a week in the spring break. The committee felt that was a kind of a back-to-back pretty big break. So we front-loaded that PD day to the 8th. And speaking of the PD, I did a informal survey of some principals, and it varied. Like Miss Satterley uses a lot of her PD days. The high school, more of the high school teachers have their PD completed by flex time, which by flex time we mean outside the scheduled PD days. There was a thought that this year that planning in October was awfully close to fall break. So that was moved down to the 29th, one week away from October. There was discussion about that day in the past has been used to look at data from assessment, and the principal member was pretty adamant that was not as important as maybe we thought about that day. But it's still a day that's always been in our calendar to look at assessment. You don't have to, on November the 6th this year, we do not have to be off for election day. And there was no sentiment by the committee that we have election day off. In the past, presidential election has to be off, but not on a midterm. And then, like I said, the 19th of December, last year we had 10 full days for staff for Christmas break, and then the 11th day, or actually it was actually 9 and 9. So there was 9 days off the staff and one planning was 10. And this year it's the exact same, 9 and 1 day for planning. So it's 10 both years. Martin Luther King moves down to the 21st, but there's no, that has to be off. And we keep President's Day weekend in there with a planning day or a professional day and just a day off, but we mark those as snow day 1 and 2. So if it snows, we're going to use those. And we've done that in the past. It's kind of nice to let people know up front, because if we have a bad early start to the winter, we would take those days more than likely. So this just lets people know up front. And then anytime we move a planning day and a professional day to make it a snow day, it just has to be added to the calendar at the end, which is not the perfect way to do planning PD. And the board has the option not to take. I mean, if you have 1 or 2 snow days and you want to extend it by a day or 2, and you think those planning days, professional days, need to stay in the calendar for instructional purposes, then you have that. You put S1 and S2, I don't think you're locked into that. You can use them if you like, or you can keep them, because you all get to determine the makeup days. Spring break again is the same as this year, and it matches up with our friends out the road. The PD day was moved down to the 19th from the 26th. And that is Good Friday, which a lot of people obviously observe, so that's why that was.
The 19th.
Mm-hmm.
What was the committee's thought on what you had said, the other school district is going through the 21st and then not having to return until the 7th, where they're getting 3 weekends? Was there discussion of that?
I don't think we had any
No, at the
discussion.
time.
We didn't know.
We didn't know.
Yeah, that's information I've gathered after. They did not know at that time.
So that's a pretty long stretch to get 3 full weekends.
It was like 17 days or something.
Yeah, when we talk about what Keith talked about feeding and kids and taking care of them, and I mean, you're going an awfully long period of time.
And it cuts it real close, I think, too, for traveling for
Yeah.
holidays. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not getting out till that
Yeah.
Friday. That doesn't leave families a lot of time if they're going out to get somewhere either, so.
Yeah,
They
my-
might only do this once.
Then like that. Well, it's nice that first week back, they only have 2 days, so your kids are like, all that energy,
Yeah.
and then you get a break and you
Yeah.
get back to work on it.
Because otherwise, on that Monday, you're still going through the energy.
It's a long week.
And if you basically have got to have minimum 2 days. If you go to if you try to take that out to the 3rd and come back to school on the 4th, your attendance will be atrocious.
Right. Can I clarify on the part that's kind of written down here where it says opening and closing? That opening day where it has the 15th, that should be the 13th.
Yeah, that's
is that
just
right?
where we
Okay.
didn't make that change.
That's okay. I was just making sure so I didn't.
Yeah.
Because the student, the first day is actually the
Where it says
15th.
stay.
Okay,
Where it says stay.
that E1 is August the 15th. That August opening day should be the 13th.
Okay. So I just wanted to verify.
That's a good catch. We're just, the way I do this, I just go in there and make those changes, and that just.
Yeah, no,
didn't-
it's good. I just wanted to make sure I had it.
That's right. What's in the days is
Right,
in the calendar blocks.
right.
The 9 weeks, we let that be an instructional call by the counselors and principals, and that usually is a 40, we try to get with them and see when those breaks would be after the calendar is established. Then some 9 weeks may be 42 days, some may be 44 because they're nice breaks. Like it might happen just at the end of Christmas or just at the end of the holiday break, or it's just before Martin Luther King junior day, whatever the case may be. So those are not 45, it'd be 180 day, and we only have 171, so those 9 weeks are a little bit different. That's why they're not set yet.
So this is considered just the first review reading, whatever.
And you all, the way I read the regulation is, it is now in your all's, it is now in the board's hands. I don't find anything that says that you all cannot look at this, take the committee's recommendation, tweak it. I don't think you are required to send it back to the committee. It might be good, it might be good shared collaborative decision-making, but I don't think you're required to do that. I mean, this now is, you take the committee's recommendation and Dr. Look's recommendation, and then you're allowed to chew on that and come up with your own ideas. Send it back to the committee if you so choose, and make the decision if you so choose.
So is it possible for us to vote on this at the work session, or does it have to wait until the next board meeting?
We could create an action item on the work session.
But we do have to wait.
Unless you want a special call meeting.
Well, I mean, we do have to wait. We can't approve it.
Yeah, you gotta discuss, you gotta have, it says you gotta have a couple of meetings on it.
Okay.
And everybody's a little late this year because of the committee process.
Yeah. I think
So,
it looks good though. I much
Yeah.
enjoyed this year's calendar.
All right.
Well, I have to thank you. You did a great job on this.
Thank you.
And it was interesting getting the
We had a good committee.
comments of the community, parents, and administrators, and
We had lively discussion.
it was pretty lively.
Yes, it was.
But being positive,
Yeah, positive.
not negative.
No.
All right, thank you. All right, so, let's see, we're now moving on to the elementary consolidation. First item is the elementary principal positions.
This is, the first item is most straightforward. It's the approval of the principal positions for the 2 new schools. Once approved, then we can advertise.
So there's nothing really for us to review, or it's just literally, because it's just the positions, we're not looking at the descriptions. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Obvious, we need principals.
Make a motion for the approval of 2 elementary principal positions, one for the Tolliver Intermediate School and one for Hogsett Primary School for the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes on that. All right, and then moving on to the elementary assistant principal job description.
Before we can discuss positions, we have to have a position described. So this is something for us to have as part of our district books that says, if there were to be an elementary assistant principal, this is what their duties would look like.
Now, this one, is it the same for both Tolliver and Hogsett? Because we talked about how maybe it would, the duties would be obviously different for,
This is a general overview of what an element, we have, for example, we have a job description on the books for high school assistant principal and a job description for middle school assistant principal. And the same, in that, the same thing, they get a position for teacher. But once you become an administrator in this building, you can shift how those things play out. So it's a relatively general description to try and represent to potential candidates what would be involved as in being an elementary AP. The actual specificity to design and intent is more of a school-based or localized discussion.
questions?
I mean, this is pretty much just defining what assistant principal is. This isn't really.
don't want to pick on Leo. He's the only elementary principal in the, you drew the unlucky straw, I guess.
That's all right.
Just talking about, and I have already had a discussion with Dr. Look about this as well, and we talked about numbers, just looking at Hogsett numbers, that pretty much when the change happens in elementary schools, the numbers will remain the same as far as Hogsett. Will you talk to us and describe a little bit, just from your perspective, what the need for an assistant principal would be outside of just looking at the raw numbers of students?
I actually have some notes jotted down for you.
Okay.
If you'd like to see.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'll just stop down here and go that way. What I did try to do was to try to kind of inform the board of what an assistant principal position would be.
Because I think we understand that it's a different feel for a pre-K, K, and 1 than it is the need at like 2 through 5. And so that's what you're going to tell us.
And there would be separate job descriptions for each site. And one of the things that I don't want to...
Wait a minute, let's not mix two
Should we,
things.
should we move
So
on?
there's not two different job descriptions for each site. The job descriptions are district-approved job descriptions.
Okay.
There's only one job description for elementary assistant principal.
Right,
What it looks like in different buildings may vary.
right.
But this piece of the agenda is just approving the job description. Susan's question is still about what kind of things would that person do, which I think is worth discussing, whether it's this issue or the next one, but there's only one job description.
Gotcha. And that's where I was going with that, was
Oh,
not to
sorry.
confuse...
Sorry, I got it.
Yeah, not to
Well,
confuse
We
the
can go
job
ahead
description.
and approve the job description if you want.
Okay.
And then move on to the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was mishing the two together.
and then
So I'll
talk
make a
about the
motion to
positions.
approve
Okay.
of the assistant principal job description as submitted.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye. Okay,
Okay,
now,
now we can move on to the actual positions. Okay.
So along those same lines, I don't want you all to necessarily confuse an assistant principal position with at either one, because the job will be different at Tolliver as it will be at Hogsett. This paper right here is just things that I want you to consider or to think about as you consider a position at both elementary schools, or at the primary school and the intermediate school. I went through and some of the bullets there. The first check mark says that you really should consider beyond the administrator to student ratio number, because the job of running a school is similar whether it's a small school, medium school, or large school. So what I was hoping to do with this page right here was just to kind of give you some examples, and this isn't a complete list of job descriptions, but these are just some of the examples of duties that an assistant principal at a pre-K, K1 school would be responsible for. And so they're bulleted there. Student behavior issues, facilitating with, in conjunction with the principal, student behavior issues, parent communication, and assisting with specific incidents. The third bullet there, an administrator will be available for both car rider and bus pickup areas. In schools that I've been involved with and previously to this one, that's exactly what we did. We divvied up that job description, and so at car rider pickup and bus pickup, there was an administrator on both literally the ends of the building, and it was nice to be able to have an administrator there. Currently, I have a radio and I have to go from one to the other, which isn't, I mean, it's doable, but I don't know that it's the best as far as, public relations. Just, that was one of my favorite things, was to be able to see every parent as they went through the line and wave and recognize cars and families and students. The next bullet talks about when I'm out of the building, really having someone, an administrator, in charge. Currently, you know, I have different people kind of stepping in, but to truly have an assistant principal that would be able to take over if I'm away at meetings or conferences. The next bullet talks about duties that could be divided and shared, teacher evaluations, building and grounds, transportation, curriculum and instruction, response to intervention instruction, site-based decision-making committee, or SBDM, council, committees, and then also just input on the continuous school improvement plan that is a big project that runs throughout the school year. So all of those things, having said all of that, those are some of the duties that could be divided. Currently, and one of the next bullets talks about the instructional leadership role of a principal is often overtaken by some of these other responsibilities. And so that's where I would really see a lot of value in having an assistant principal in that role.
In a normal educational, like not this transition years, would this be something that the district would do, or like site-based, or would it be if there were a site-based, like if
the district sets base allocation, which often includes assistant principals. A site base always has the ability to use their funds to trade and adjust to create more or less. If we weren't making this transition, I think we would be before you asking for our formula to be evaluated to put assistant principals at our elementary schools.
okay. I think my only concern, I think there's need, I mean, I think there's never, I would like to clone myself at my job a lot and find other people to, you know, help out, and I think there's always use for more people. And the only thing I just, without seeing it in front of me, like a layout of where the money's gonna go, or where it's gonna come from and receive this net neutrality, you know, everything, it's hard for me at this time to say, okay, yes, I have an additional X amount of money to spend to that without knowing where it's coming from. And I don't, that's just where personally, I'm a accountant side of me wants to see that. And so in blind faith, it's hard to, you know, I think it'll all work out, but not knowing where is a little bit difficult for me.
Well, I don't think it's blind faith, because we're committed to maintaining.
That's not, I guess that's not the way it did came across with it, yeah.
Because we're committed, we've got 70 positions.
Right.
The budget dictates that there's only this many positions to work with.
Right.
So we're going to work within that parameters that's been set by the district budget. There will be no more positions, and likely no less, because we want to find as many important roles as we can. And yes, I understand the desire to want to see what the whole picture would look like in order to be able to approve. But it's also about, if this position is approved, there's a domino effect. If there's an assistant principal, then that means these other responsibilities and duties can be handled this way. If there's no assistant principal, then we've got to create a whole different arrangement to say these responsibilities and duties will then have to be handled this way. And that's true for a whole host of positions that this committee has discussed. That's why we came tonight, because the committee said, okay, the next most important thing is, like, we've got to have the principals, and then the next linchpin position is the assistant principals. I mean, I can tell you now how many teachers there's going to be, if that would help, but there's a bunch of other positions that will play in, librarian, counselor, the different specialist classes, how we address needs of special education. Like, this is our chance to really design the school from scratch in the way that we feel will best meet the needs of students and families in those buildings. The committee then went through and said, okay, let's see if we can get the assistant principals in place, and that allows us more of the dominoes to fall in the ways we think would be healthy for the school. But I also can show you how many teachers there would be. But I don't have yet to say this many art positions, or this is where the special ed would come in, or this would be, because, again, they're all connected.
I will add this to that whole conversation. The whole idea of cutting positions or losing positions, the meetings that I've been involved in, it's been actually the opposite focus. It's how can we put more people in places to meet the needs of our students. And you know, it's no big secret that 6 years ago in this conversation of losing your neighborhood schools and consolidating, it was hard to stomach, it's hard to take, it's hard to understand, but I think that's one of the kind of tenets that we are standing very firm on, is that we're going to be able to provide and create schools that are going to more than be the basis or basic coverage. So I really do feel like in the few meetings that I've been involved since being named the designer of Hogsett, that has been an emphasis of how can we add more, how can we put more, but not in the sense of trying to add positions just for adding positions, but we're really trying to look at the needs of our student population, meeting the needs of Danville schools.
The elementary principals unanimously talk about that right now. The greatest, that is the early childhood, the earliest grades that take up their greatest amount of time, because it's usually their family's first experience in schools. The level of anxiety is that much higher because it's your first kid and first time trying to figure out preschool or kindergarten or first grade, especially if you've come to school without any of that background. And those are things that, when it takes up that amount of time, as Leo's laid out, that means that other things have to come second, because those family needs have to be handled up front. And so the idea of having someone else there to help tackle those issues, that has the authority to make those decisions, that can make all the connections for those families, and still allow the school's overall program, instruction, support, teacher development, and so forth, to run uninterrupted, it's believed to be a necessary piece.
I think also, I mean, my point, I'm married to a former principal 4 years. We had about 600 kids in her building. It would have given her eye teeth to have an assistant principal. And it wasn't just administrative concerns. A lot of it was getting to her teachers and being able to be there for them, as opposed, if it was a great day, she might see 3 of them. If it was a horrible day, she didn't see anybody except for sick kids or irate parents or whatever. So I do think that educationally, academically, that it really would be a plus for us to do that. Yes, it's an expensive venture, but I do believe all the numbers are going to shake out, and we'll be okay on that.
All right, any final questions, comments? Thank you for putting this together. It's helpful to see that input coming from you as well. Thank you. Thanks.
I move that we make the approval of 2 elementary assistant principal positions, one at Tolliver, one at Hogsett for the school year 2018-2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Moving on to the design development.
Actually, one second.
Oh,
Do we want
sorry.
to,
Is there something else?
quick rundown? We need to update these, not that one.
At the last meeting, you asked about black and white.
Yes.
It's easier. I just started the chart on Dr. LaCasse.
Oh.
It has the homeroom teachers. We're not asking for approval of positions.
Okay,
It's just
it's
information.
just information for us.
Right, and the second part of that, if you remember the overview we did a couple weeks ago, or last month, out to the right of each of those positions, we will establish funding sources. So to answer the question about is it site-based funded or board funded or grant funded, so we'll lay all that out for you. So this is just a start. Okay.
Perfect. That's a huge help. Thank you, Greg. Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, so now moving on to our design development discussion.
So Matt's come back to join us this evening. talked to a number of you guys since the last conversations, and this is a chance for us to provide some feedback so that Matt is able to take the ideas. So for example, it's thus far the new addition on the west end, folks have liked the glass representing the portico share design. What we have a chance now is explain out like why we like that. And then what Matt gets to do is take the why we like that back to the studio, and they start to work that through the rest of the design of the building. Same thing for comments around the preschool addition, where we decided that the covered the covered drop-off was a real priority, and some of the designs there that were in place, and even some of the comments around the main entrance. I've emailed Matt some of those thoughts already, just so at least we've got the running conversation going. But my guess is that you probably have had some time to think of some other questions or ideas or thoughts that we'd be able to play through. And if need be, probably could throw the slides up if necessary, but if not, curious what kind of thoughts you've had since work session.
Yeah, I apologize for the shortened work session. You didn't get much out of us because everybody ran out to go celebrate our football team that night.
No, that was, we just wanted to.
Teresa, you logged in as you? I can always email it to you.
We just wanted to present what we had. We weren't expecting feedback at that point. We wanted to give you, that's why I'm back tonight, more of a follow-up to that meeting and take any feedback that you've had to digest from that meeting.
One of the things I really liked was the new entrance and how it doesn't, I mean, just the whole traffic flow. But again, we were talking about how still, if we had like however that entry area would be for the kindergarten and first grade, would that still cause blockage for cars trying to back out of spaces as?
Yeah, I was worried about that. I mean, this is down the road, but you know, as we're looking at the entry, it's hard not to look at that parking in the front of Hogsett. It's always, to me, as a user, been really problematic. The spaces where you're backing out into those lanes of traffic. And I don't know whether if we widen those lanes, whether those spaces are still needed now that you're adding the spaces down below. It's just, it's back, those, just backing into, you know, those traffic lanes I find is a little bit sometimes problematic. But I like the port cochere idea, and I'm not sure whether I go back and forth whether I like the overhang or the not overhang. I know there's been talk that, you know, if the overhang, then people will wait until they get there to do that. But at the same time, I think kindergarten first parents are going to wait there anyways. They're not going to, like third graders or fourth graders, or they'll drop them off down. So I think, you know, that's interesting. And I wondered if it's worth exploring making a separate entrance and exit for that loop versus having a loop, I guess, to make a U. I don't know. Steve just threw that out to me before. He was like, I wonder, you know, if there'll be congestion, but that's down the road. But as we're looking at it, it's hard not to.
Do you get worthy?
Yeah.
You're thinking this.
To do, yeah, like.
To make that.
Horseshoe.
Yes, to make it a horseshoe versus having traffic converge back into in and out. Have a one-way in and one-way out.
I will also point out, we've taken some comments back to our landscape architect, and she's given us some more, I think about 4 other options that we're still kind of working through about how to organize the site, but also how to organize that drive. And we've even looked at some examples of turning it a little bit to allow for a play space in the front, to kind of let that be part of the front view of the school when you're coming down Waveland. But I think that is a possibility we could to look at some type of horseshoe there. Really, they shouldn't. If people are coming in, there should be enough stacking space that people are coming in and coming out that they don't have any issue hitting each other, because it's 2 lanes coming in, 1 lane coming in, and then it breaks.
Yeah, it's 1, and then 2 to 1.
That's right.
It's like the McDonald's drive-thru and then both windows open.
Yeah, that people can't figure out.
I still can't figure it out.
People figure it out.
Well, it's just something.
It's easier to ask for donations.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just something, I don't know if on flow it would be better. I think that just a direct flow instead of coming back into the main traffic part of it might, just something we talked about.
Yeah.
So is that gonna be leveled off? Because I know it has a,
It's gonna have,
Drop.
there's some parts that are gonna be, you're gonna come up and you're gonna come back down, just because of the way the grade of the site is.
because I was wondering, especially going through the pre-K. going
You'd
through
really
that
be,
way.
you'd really be coming this way, and then coming up,
Mhm.
and then coming back down, going this way. And we can also pull that entrance, that main entrance down a little bit to kind of help with that too. But at the two Porca Share areas, we're considering, our intent was to have two places to drop off under that cover and still have a third lane for people
To go
that are
around.
dropping off at the other entrance, and then still have,
So if you're dropping off at pre-K, or you wouldn't get stuck
right,
in
that's
the,
right.
yeah.
So you got two lanes coming in and they stack up
Mhm.
at that
Right.
preschool, the other line comes through and then they drop off. And then there's still there's two lanes coming out in front of the main entrance, so there's one to back in and leave.
So essentially, your outside lane would be marked for preschool to come as one lane and then into whatever covered parking. And the inside lane would be marked for pre-K, K1 to come in through here and then double stack in that part of it.
Either double stack or just leave it one stack, but have a drive-through lane for parking.
Well, it also depends, I mean, right now, our preschool, I think they come a little later, so I mean, that may
Yeah.
be an issue. What was it that you suggested, Keith, about?
They're exploring, I asked them to explore another option as to whether or not the teacher parking area, could be flipped here and this become green play space with bus loop, just as a way of changing the streetscape from this end and better control over this area. But these were looked at, you guys said might be of interest, and we're still.
And we're working through those options right now. I sent some comments back today to our landscape architect, and she's taking those comments and also adding some more feedback so we could email those to him and get some comments back on that. But either way, the building doesn't change, the building footprint doesn't change, so that's almost two different conversations that we need to have.
Yeah, I liked the overall building footprint, and, and I thought that was like where things are located and the shifting of the entrance and everything. But I did agree with others that I thought the porte cochere was the most Danville. I think, the slice was a little edgy for us, and then the screening was attractive in some ways, but I'm not sure, I think just the porte cochere works best for.
And it blends into the existing architecture of the building.
Exactly. And I love.
Just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
This is what essentially is the general imagery. Probably worth knowing, what is it about this that you like? Why does this stand out over other options?
Well, again, I think it's more, fitting with, it's not ostentatious, or in a way, it's very, fits in with the existing architecture, but especially that southwest addition, I like the openness of the glass for that flex room where it's currently drawn. I think that would be nice, and it looks approachable, and especially, I imagine you would maybe see activity coming up, and it would, whereas driving up to Hogsett right now, it seems a little sad, just.
It allows us to soften that edge too when you're
Right.
coming down that direction.
I also look at the design as a design that could reasonably represent itself even 40 years from now. So, I just think it's not that it's safe, but I just think, to me, it just makes sense.
Well, you've seen schools where they've slapped on a fancy addition in the front, and you're like, well, that was done this year, and this was, this kind of seems architecturally like a good, update.
And we bring in some elements from the new additions into the existing building to kind of tie those together to have, if you want to call it anchors on either end, tie those two anchors together with the entrance in the middle with all that same language.
But I do like the idea of that overhang it's kind of welcomes you in, and just like going into a hotel makes you feel safe and protected to drop your child off and let them go.
At the preschool?
Yeah. At the preschool, and I don't know what you all think, but I still like the idea of maybe exploring it for the K-1, because again, those kids are little, and I don't know. I could see it both ways, but.
you know, the way we're showing it now is basically that canopy would go to the edge of sidewalk, so when the kids get out of the car, they have cover. And a lot of the reasons we did that is because of the scale. You know, we can't control the height of that as much as we can as the addition. And if it's close enough where someone could be driving, I think, can I drive under that?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
right, and they can't.
Oops.
So, yeah. So we try to avoid those types of oops.
On the outside, I think that's where I am.
There were other comments that I've relayed, just to make sure we're on the same page, that no matter how the entrances are done, these are all beautiful when lit, but the hours by which students instead would see an entrance lit would not be as much as they would see it unlit. So we have to make sure that this is attractive without glowing lights that draw you in, because likely the lights would not be on for most of the day. There was also concerns or questions about how we add some depth to the main entrance, because it's such a rectangular box of a building, whether or not there can be ways in which that can be discovered to add that in, and also knowing that even if you do these sorts of things, we still have to figure out what it costs and whether it becomes an alternate option. This was more of the preschool drive-through that folks seemed to be inclined towards. Sorry if I'm blocking folks' view. This one was not. There was that gas station feel. Sorry, that's not the right way of saying it, but which I think was more about the lettering than it was about anything else. But this it still seemed to have that sort of level of invite to it. And while the screen idea we all thought was particularly intriguing, we also had a hard time envisioning how much time we would have preschoolers out there in that space. Right. So a neat idea, but maybe not the most functional down the road for design. Really would rather see that space used to make sure that this works than possibly just having the hangout.
Yeah, because in reality today, I mean, I was talking to them, I mean, it's not kids sitting on the front steps of the school. It's somebody with a walkie-talkie saying, you're here to pick up your son. So also that person who is on the walkie-talkie somewhere needs coverage or something, but, you know, it's, but that's not the reality of schools as people, especially at this age, hanging out front as much anymore.
Do you like the two parking spot, two drop-off spots for preschool?
Yeah, I think you need that, especially with the different times of day. We can explore more of that main entrance, kind of give that some more definition.
I think it is just that lettering that throws that off. I mean, I think it's probably, a good design, but it's for some reason that.
And a lot of
I'm
reasons.
sure that was just thrown on there just to.
Give it scale.
Yeah,
so you kind of get an idea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because at that time we didn't know what the name of the school was actually going to be. We just wanted to show something that can give you how tall that is.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as just kind of moving on, as far as the preschool type area, that was one of my favorite parts was that front, I guess that picture showing that front hallway with the kind of the sitting area and the cubbies, and I really like that design.
See through into the classrooms as well.
And while this image is almost reverse of this, these classrooms had direct access to the preschool playground, which was also private area. So even they had this common area, we all liked that part of it. The restrooms in each room, something else always felt too important.
I know it's really early on. Someone made the point to me about like, I mean, it's so early.